Hello, my name is Kevin. I am a First Nations advocate with Dementia Australia. For more than 50,000 years we have come together to trade knowledge, to learn and to teach. Today we join to keep up that tradition. So with that in mind, we now pay our respects to the traditional owners, to elders past and present, to those First Nations people joining us here today.
I knew something wasn't right, and I kept saying to my GP, I'm having issues, getting confused, constant fogginess. Well, the memory clinic, they start off by doing a series of testing, cognitive testing, all sorts of things that you fill out, general discussions with you. A psychologist chats to you about your experiences. You then go on to their findings from the cognitive investigations. Then I went for an MRI. They then sent me for a PET scan. Then finally that led to the appointment with the neurologist. I was truly hoping that they were going to say, look, you've got some sort of cognitive issue, we can do this medication, we can do this, let's get this damn well sorted and let's move along and see you later and off you go. And when they said, we've reviewed your PET scans, etc., and unfortunately we can see that you have young onset Alzheimer's, you literally could have knocked me off my chair. It's as though time stood still for a moment. Hey, my name's Jim. I was diagnosed with younger onset Alzheimer's. And as you might expect, life's changed quite a lot for me since then. I was never much into exercise before, but now it's a huge part of my routine, and I'm trying to keep my body and my brain as healthy as possible for as long as I can. I've also been doing quite a bit of travelling. My neurologist, once I was diagnosed, told me to create a bucket list and start ticking things off. So that's one of the things we've been doing. We went to Koh Samui recently. We've got a cottage in Mullaney, so we've been having family times there. So we've been trying to get these things that we want to do. And we've also been focusing on this podcast, which I'm now hosting with you.
What a bucket list item that is. I'm Hamish McDonald. This is Hold the Moment. It's a podcast from Dementia Australia. In the first series, Jim and I spoke with people living with dementia. We heard about the challenges that they face, like what to do when you're first diagnosed, how to deal with the medical stuff and the legal paperwork, of which there is plenty, and how your sleep might be affected over time.
I also shared a lot about my own journey with dementia, and we even had a chat with my husband Tyler to get his perspective on providing care and support for me.
Even though he doesn't like being called a carer.
Absolutely, Home.
So in this new series, we're going all in on carers. It's a topic close to my heart. I looked after a lot of my dad's care. He was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. He passed away at the end of last year.
Caring for people living with dementia can be really tough. It's a logistic nightmare, and it can be mentally and physically exhausting.
And I know you've said this, I know I've experienced it too as a carer. It can be really isolating. If you're looking after someone living with dementia, you might be spending a lot of time at home with them. You might be the only person in your social circle that's going through anything like this.
I would obviously keep my friends up to date when I'd saw them. But for me personally, I almost sort of said, I'll give you the update, but I just want us to be friends. I want me to be 30 again.
It can also be emotionally turbulent. Dementia can change people, and that's really hard to watch happen.
Shirley's not the girl I married. Nothing is left of that. Yeah, it's all gone.
So, on this season, we're hearing from carers. So how do you feel about people caring for you and calling them carers?
Yeah, it's really difficult for me because I feel pretty good in myself, and some of the people that I've met through Dementia Australia have declined a little bit more than I feel I have. So I still don't feel as though I'm that far down the road so that I need carers, but I'm aware that I do need support in certain areas. So Ty's resistant on being called a carer.
And is there a friction point for you with Ty or with your kids?
I think so. I think they still very much think of just me as dad, and I do a few clumsy things, and Ty's much the same. I think it's quite a difficult thing to actually change the name to a carer. How about you with your dad? Did you find it difficult when you suddenly went from son to carer?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was gradual, like all of these things. But yeah, there was certainly a point where I realised that even though Dad is pretty cognitive and can have really smart conversations about things, he just can't actually land on a decision.
Yeah, that's a bit me now.
Yeah, and that was a really complicated thing to navigate because you don't want to override someone that has clear intention and will and can tell you what they don't want. At the same time, you know that in their interests and for their safety, some decisions have to be made.
Yeah.
And it was really challenging to sort of feel that you were basically forcing their hand. And, you know, I used to try and think of everything like a drop-down menu. If this, then that. If not that, then that. And it just didn't work. You'd go around in circles with Dad. I remember with getting butcher's paper out at one point, trying to sort of put a map of all the decisions in front of Dad so that he could get to a decision at the end. But even doing that, we'd go back to the beginning. He'd say, oh, no, well, I'll just stay here at home. And it's like, no, if we've gone through that.
That's not an option.
You know that that's not an option anymore.
For me as well, I'm starting to find making decisions are more difficult, and also planning is difficult for me. So Ty steps up in those areas. I think the kids are also aware that, you know, if they leave it to me to plan it now, it's not going to happen. So they sort of step up with that.
I always expected it to be difficult, but it was way more complicated than I ever imagined. Something that was really useful for me was actually talking quite a lot to a colleague, someone that I sit on the desk with at the project frequently and who had experienced dementia with both her parents.
I'm Rachel Corbett and I am, what am I? I'm a media presenter, I'm a podcaster, I'm somebody who runs podcast networks. I'm a jack of all trades.
And a mum.
And a mum, I am a mum, that's true.
Tell us what your relationship is with dementia.
So both my parents have had it in different forms. My mum had Alzheimer's, my father had Lewy body dementia. Prior to that, I hadn't really had any experience in dementia at all, but I feel very much like it has become a big part of my life, but there's still a lot I don't understand about it, which, considering it's taken up over a decade and I've been heavily involved in that surprises me, you know?
And it's, for you, obviously been a big part of your life. Has it been overwhelming at times? What's the impact it's had on your life?
Massively overwhelming. Yeah, I think my situation with my mum, she had Alzheimer's and it was at the end it was really bad. Like it was, you know, I say often people think it's like, oh, I guess you just forget your car keys, and it was just so much more than that for my mother. And one of the hardest things was that she was still very present, even in a really small way, right till the end. So the way that I would feel about it when I looked at her was that I could see her in there. It was almost like I was watching this person who was like trying to get out, and she was far away from me distance-wise, even though she was standing right in front of me. But she knew me. And she knew that something, like what was happening to her. She couldn't articulate it, she couldn't speak about it, but she knew something wasn't right the whole way.
So you could almost feel her frustration, you could feel it.
Yes. Every single time I saw her, it was that sort of get me out of here feeling. This isn't me. And that to watch with somebody that you love and you can't do anything about that, I think I found really, really hard. Yeah.
Just take us back a little bit to when you first started to notice some of the signs that things weren't right with her.
Yeah, she kept it a secret from me and my sister. She knew something wasn't right. earlier than she let anybody kind of know. So we didn't really know a lot. I remember asking her to drive me into work one day, and she was like, "Oh, I can't do that." I was like, "Why? You're available. You have a car. You know how to drive. So why won't you just get in the car and drive me to work?" And she kind of couldn't give me an explanation for why, but in her mind, she was like, "I don't know if I can get there, and I don't know if I can get back, and I'm just aware that something is happening here, and I'm just not confident anymore." So little things like that would happen, but she wasn't kind of saying, "I don't feel confident." And when you're, mum just won't drive you to work, and you think, "Shit, what is your problem?"
What have I done?
Yeah, exactly. Do you love me anymore? Like, what's your issue? It's those kind of things that you just can't kind of work out why they're sort of doing things. But from their perspective, it's all a lack of confidence.
Yeah.
It's just that they don't feel confident doing things anymore, and they also don't want to say that.
Once you did know, what changed? How did the dynamic shift?
I mean, ultimately with my mum, her and I had not a difficult relationship, but I mean, it kind of happened while she was sick as well. She did like to keep up appearances. And there were some things in our life that I really wanted her to be honest with me about, just in terms of my experience of certain things. I really just wanted her to kind of
Open up,
take some accountability for some things. Some stuff had happened in our life, and I felt like I was kind of speaking to a different script than she was. And so in my mind, I'm like, am I going crazy here? Like, I feel like, and so she wouldn't kind of own up to a lot of stuff. And I found that very frustrating. And then when she realized, okay, this is serious, this is something, she really started to open up to me about some things that we'd never talked about that were all I really needed to hear from her, really, because I think she realized, okay, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like let's pull the charade away. Let's have a real conversation about this. And so for me, I remember she actually had that conversation with me the night before I was going to move overseas for 2 years. And the only reason I was going overseas was because of a lot of these things. I just wanted to run away, really. And she had this conversation with me, and it was like, now I don't need to go. And I'm about to get on a plane tomorrow. And so I think that distance was hard for me then, because all I wanted to do was be around her. And by the time I got back, things are different. But as things worsened, we spent a lot of time together, and it was really healing for her and I. It changed me fundamentally as a person. I think a lot of the communication issues that I'd had early on, where, some of the things that I felt were true weren't being kind of validated, that makes you think that you're the problem as a person. And then when that validation happens and you're like, okay, it's not me. Like, we experience this together. Like, you are on my side.
That means a lot. And do you think that diagnosis sort of made her review life in itself and sort of speak to you differently than she previously had? Like you said, keeping up this facade a little bit.
Yes.
It let her put her guard down because she realised this is it, you know?
Yeah, I do think that happened to her, and I'm so grateful, honestly, that it did happen, because it really did change our relationship. It changed me. She gave me the biggest gift. Like, I feel after she passed away, coming through that time, I've never been happier, honestly, because it really helped me to see myself differently. And I also think being with somebody like that, who needs help and who is afraid and who feels safe around you, it makes you start to feel really positive about yourself too, because you can be that for that person.
So there was a silver lining, really.
Yes, definitely.
It brought you closer in a way.
Definitely. I do think I am very, very grateful for that time. I wish to get that my mother didn't have to experience what she did, because I think I benefited from that relationship and that experience by what she gave me.
Just explain that.
I just mean because how it adjusted our relationship, how it gave me the opportunity to be there for her in that way. I think that was a real privilege, and just the way it made me feel about myself. I came out the other side of that feeling just grateful to have been able to be there for her.
See, these things are so emotional. They're so raw. We should have had a big box of tissues
I know.
here, which we didn't
Get you a
think to
tissue.
do, Rachel.
I'm a blubber. I love a cry.
I think
We
there
work
is
together and they have to keep a box of tissues on standby for her and a makeup artist.
I know.
would be a nightmare for her.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you actually watched happen to your mum over time.
To be honest, it was kind of slower than I thought. I remember people saying, it's probably about 10 years between when somebody's diagnosed and when they pass away. And even close to that 10 years, I thought, this doesn't seem like somebody who's going to die in 2 years. And then at the end, it kind of progressed pretty rapidly. But, the timeline's a little fuzzy, but towards the end, it just really spiraled pretty quickly. And, it was a lot of, she became quite difficult to keep at home. My stepfather was having to call the ambulance quite a lot. She was very violent. She had not had a great upbringing, and a lot of those memories were coming back to her. When I would spend time with her, she would sometimes take my hand and, and say things to me, and I was like, oh, you think you're a little kid again. She was kind of having a lot of memories from that time. And that was also really hard, I think, because, to be taken back to a time for her which was so difficult and to have no control over, it's not like you can say, you know what, I'll go and distract myself with something else. Like your brain is ripping you back into that time and you are stuck there. And I think for her, that was really hard. So seeing some of that stuff was really tough. And yeah, it was really just, I think just watching the out of controlness of it for me. My father's situation was very different. It was a quieter experience. But my mother's was very aggressive. It was very much like she was being ripped around in this situation. It was physical. She, would kind of bundle up in the corner and sort of rock back and forth. She would be violent. She would, she really did feel like somebody who was being torn from left to right, and it was just stuck in the middle of it.
Was your mum violent towards you?
Yeah. She didn't mean to be.
Yeah.
In her mind, I think it was just like it all felt involuntary. It all just felt like she was just doing whatever her body was telling her to do. And you could see that she regretted it. She knew who I was. She didn't want to be doing that to me, but that was kind of how it was manifesting for her.
And often the nearest and dearest is the one that you lash out at.
Of course.
Did you have any particular techniques that you thought were good as a calming influence on her at those moments when she was at her most stressed and angry?
I'm pretty good at a comedic left field, like in the weirdest of terrible moments.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at going out with something.
The gallows humour.
Yes, the gallows humour. And
good.
my mum was very much the same type of person.
Right.
And sometimes, depending on where she was, it would work.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in those moments, I would say something and she still had humour till the end.
I don't know how you think about this now. I guess, when we're recording this, my dad died just a few weeks ago, and I think I'm only just starting to maybe recognise the amount that this was weighing on me emotionally and mentally. I'm really only just in the process right at this minute taking stock of all of that. How do you, with the benefit of some hindsight, at least in relation to your mum, think about it?
I don't know how I still managed to get everything done, because one of the things I thought, and a lot about my mum and my dad, is that my mum was sort of, it was late 20s and through my 30s. My father was through my 30s into my early 40s.
God, you had a lot.
Yeah, I used to say a lot during that time, I am living the life of a 60-year-old right now. Because I'm taking care of both, I was the only person here for my father. My mum did live in a different state and had care, but I was, constantly kind of there and thinking about her, and I think that mental energy, I feel like the best night's sleep I had was the night she passed away, because I felt like I could just relax.
Yeah.
She's okay. She's all right. Every day up to that point. I didn't feel she was safe. I didn't feel she was okay. I didn't feel like I knew she wasn't okay. And, so that was really hard because you're also feeling incredible guilt for being away and not being there 100% of the time. But I was really trying with both my parents to manage my life as best I could through that time because I was conscious, and I had seen a lot of people in that situation where they do give everything up, and I feel like that is an amazing thing to do. But I was conscious that I'm in my late 20s, my early 30s. My career is not established. Financially, I need to build stuff up. I want to have a family. At that stage, I was like, I want to try and, meet somebody. So I was like, I have to try and do all this stuff.
This is crucial
yes,
stuff.
It's crucial because
if you get this wrong,
that's
it can
it.
just change everything.
And I did not want to get to the end of my mum passing and my dad passing and think, now I have to start and resent them for that time.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, it's fine. This has been a really hellish juggle for me that I've almost not made it through, but it has been worth doing everything at the same time. Because then when both of them passed away, I was like, okay, I've done everything I could there, but also I'm like, I can go on. I can earn an income. I can have my child. I can, do all that stuff. And I think after coming through 10 plus years of that, I needed a bit of time. I really wanted to have a kid, but I was like, I actually need a few years off because I've spent over a decade looking after other people and I don't want to look after somebody else right now. And if I had not have done all that stuff during that time, I probably wouldn't have been financially able to have this kid by myself. There was a lot that I kind of felt like I had to keep up in the air to make sure that I didn't crash when it all sort of ended.
You've had a lot on your shoulders.
Yeah, it's been effing exhausting. I got to be honest, it's so tiring. It is a lot. And there is a real sense of relief. You feel terrible for saying that. But honestly, after my mum passed, I was relieved, mostly because it was just that was really harrowing for her. For my father, I had spent the last, 8 years of my life, 5 years when he was in my care, still at home, but in my care, and then when he was in care, it was exhausting.
How do you suggest Jim thinks about this? Because he's worried about his beautiful daughters and his son, and there's a lot of love and there's this desire to help, but then there's also a desire to not burden people. I don't want to speak for you, but that's what you've talked about. We've
talked about this together.
And Ty, your husband, as well.
That's exactly how I feel.
I think the fact that you feel that way is in and of itself enough to begin with, because sometimes, my father, bless him, loves a guilt trip. Wasn't the kind of person that was, let me not burden you. Was very much the kind of guy that's like, I feel like you're – yeah, exactly. I feel like you're supposed to be burdened by me. So if you could give up everything else, So my mother, on the other hand, was fighting something that was really had a grip of her, and she was always trying her best. And in that environment, you're like, I'll do whatever you want to be here for you. So I think that outlook in and of itself is amazing for somebody. The only thing that I would say that has been incredibly helpful, my mother was like this, but she kind of couldn't do as much. My father was completely the opposite of this, is do what you can to help them to do what they need to do. For example, with my father, would not have a conversation about even thinking about getting people in during the day on the days that I couldn't be there, just for me to have somebody to check on him. No, not interested in opening the door to somebody. No, I don't want anybody to be here. I only want you to be here. So that then puts an incredible amount of pressure on you as a person, because you're like, okay, well, should I be going to work? Should I be there with you all the time? Is it okay? And then, of course, at the end of the conversation, when he finally lets somebody in and he thinks they're lovely and he's like, why didn't we do this before? And I'm like, thanks for the 9 years of punish that it's taken me to get to the point where you're like, you see, I'm not going to send a serial killer in here to look after you. I'm not going to just help me help you.
Yeah.
And communication in that regard, you feel so connected to your parents. You seem like a very open, honest person. I didn't have a huge amount of communication with my parents. I wish my father had been like, oh, I'm really struggling with it. The moments I feel we felt most connected was when he would tell me, I'm scared.
And when he needed you, I suppose.
Exactly. And there were a few moments where he would be really vulnerable and he would show me he's really scared.
That's what breaks my heart with a lot of it. And some of the stories you told us about with your dad and seeing your dad when he was so sad at times, and frightened. And as a child, then you have to become the adult in the situation and comfort them. I think that's so sad to hear about and to watch for people.
I know, and I get that you wouldn't want to do that to your kids, because I feel the same way. You feel like you want to protect them, but at the same time, it is a privilege. It is a privilege.
Yeah.
It really is. And I feel like your kids would feel the same thing. You want to be the person that is there for somebody in this situation that they love. It's genuinely one of the things I'm most proudest of doing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's an important thing for your kids to have.
Tell me about your dad.
Oh, good old Ronnie C, mate.
God, dementia gave you a good kicking, didn't it?
I tell you what. Oh, sometimes he would behave in certain ways and people would be like, oh, it's the dementia. I'm like, mate, he's been like this since 1937. So, no, it's not the dementia. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I'd tell Mum about my parents were not together for a very long time.
Yes.
And I'd tell Mum about things Dad was doing or saying or what they were saying about the illness, and Mum was like, he was like that when I was married to him.
Correct. That's the thing. They are fundamentally still the same person, and some of the stuff, like my dad.
You do have to use it to your advantage, though, sometimes, because I do say to Ty, it's the Alzheimer's,
Yeah.
when it's appropriate.
Yes. So my dad.
He's going to hear this.
I know he will,
Truly.
yeah.
But my dad, right until the bitter end, could guilt trip like nobody's business. And I'm like, oh, you're forgetting a lot of stuff, but not how to really dig the heel in on the guilt, So, yeah, Dad, it was almost honestly the day that my mum passed away, I said my dad picked up the slack.
Yeah, right.
And, at that point, I think he was more aware of the fact that he was kind of not managing things. But also it was quite hard because my dad was very much a stick my head in the sand kind of person. So I couldn't really work out whether are the bills not getting paid because Dad just loves to shut the door on life and go like, that'll sort itself out, or are they not being paid because Dad doesn't know how to pay the bills? So, yeah, then we sort of went through the process of getting him tested and that kind of stuff. And his was a much quieter experience than my mother. He was always a very solitary person, liked his own company. And when we moved him into the home, the people kept trying to pull him out and get him to do activities because, of course, they don't want anybody sitting in the room. And I was like, actually, that's the happiest place that he could be, And sure enough, any time that they dragged him out there, he'd turn around and say to them, why have you brought me out with all these old people? I was like, look in the mirror, mate. Yeah. So he was kind of quite – it was really more a difficult thing for me emotionally because – he was just a hard person to care for. And I think sometimes when you're looking after people that you love, relationships are complex. It's not like, oh, wow, we've had such a close, wonderful, bonded relationship for years and now I'm stepping in to do for you what you so deftly did for me. Sometimes you're stepping in to a situation where you're like, well, I'm turning up and I'm going to do this for you. But sometimes I wonder, do you deserve it?
Did you do it for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there's obviously a lot going on here, different parents, different kinds of relationships with both of them. And obviously you're trying to make sure that you're looking after yourself in the midst of all of it. How did you cope? How did you get through it all?
Honestly, I do feel like I have a very high threshold for what I can manage. What's the functioning alcoholic version of this?
Yes.
You're a functioning carer.
Yeah, I'm a functioning carer. I just can keep getting things done. I think if they just need to happen, well, it just needs to happen, And that's not to say that I'm not exhausted, but I don't think I'm not really one that sort of sits there and wallows in the situation and is like, it is what it is, And there are also, as I mentioned, there are benefits to doing this. And I think the values of the person that I am, I do remember having a conversation with my therapist. I had many over the years as I was going through this time. And that I would also say is one of of the things that got me through massively.
Getting support.
100%.
Which Dementia Australia provides. There's an
Super.
incredible support line that you can call 24/7 and you can get access to counselling through that.
Having a professional to talk to throughout all of this period for me was really important, particularly the stuff with my dad, because that was my responsibility. I was the sole person looking after all of that stuff. But I remember I had a couple of conversations about opportunities to potentially move for work, for life, for those things. And honestly, I said to my therapist, like, I do feel like I'm really giving up a lot here, and I don't have I don't have much choice in terms of what I can do. Like if I had some great opportunity open up overseas,
You couldn't really take
I
it.
couldn't really take it. To be honest, I couldn't really go on holidays for a long time because I didn't have anybody here to look after Dad while I was gone. So I didn't really go anywhere. And there was a part of me, I said to him, like, I feel like he doesn't deserve it sometimes. Like, does he really deserve me canning this part of my life? And she said something.
And it is that prime time.
Yes. And she said something to me that really, really resonated. And that was, it's not about what he deserves. It's about what your values are. And your values are, you could not leave somebody like this and go and do something like that because you would never forgive yourself for doing that. So it doesn't matter that he doesn't deserve it. It doesn't matter that he drives you nuts. It doesn't matter that he makes you guilty every day for doing this. You are the person that wants to keep showing up despite that and to say, I can keep going through this.
In hindsight now, looking back, would you have changed anything?
No, nothing. No. I'm really glad for everything. The one thing I cannot deal with in my life is regret, because you can't do anything about it. You can't go back in time. And I was like, I cannot regret anything because then I will hang on to that for the rest of my life. But if I give this 150% and they both go, I can move on with my life. And that is what has happened. I just feel like it is a privilege. I don't have a single regret. Do I wish I had a different relationship with my parents? Maybe, but like maybe we'd never talk and I wouldn't have any relationship with them and things could have been fundamentally different. Like I did have a difficult time with both my parents because of this, but it connected us in a way that I might not have ever had if they were both well.
Thanks again to Rachel for sharing her experience of caring for her parents.
Yeah, I didn't expect Rach to get quite so emotional. I mean, I knew it had been a tough time for her, but she's such a together person. When I see her at work, you never really contemplate how much someone's dealing with something like this outside of work hours.
She just lifts you up, just the way she talks, you know?
And be able to keep a sense of humour throughout it as well.
Absolutely. I think you've got to hold on to that humour the whole way through.
Yeah, critical. Now, if you can really relate to Rachel's story and you want some practical advice about caring, there's actually a bonus episode which goes with this episode.
You'll hear from Kristin, one of our advisors on Dementia Australia's free helpline. Kristin and her colleagues are always keen to help out, and the helpline's available 24/7. So if you need someone to talk to,
they're the people to ask. But you can also find that bonus helpline episode wherever you listen to podcasts or on the Dementia Australia website. You can also call the helpline directly for tips and advice. It's 1800 100 500. That's 1800 100 500.
Make sure you're following Hold the Moment so you don't miss any of our episodes on caring. You can also go back and listen to Series 1 anytime. Hold the Moment is a podcast from Dementia Australia, produced by Dead Set Studios. You can find more episodes and resources on Dementia Australia's website, dementia.org.au. The show is hosted by me, Jim Rogers.
And by me, Hamish McDonald. The executive producers are Kelly Reardon and Gia Moylan. The producers are Madeline Hawcroft and Liam Reardon. Production manager is Anne Chesterman. Sound design by Ryan Pemberton. A special thanks to the whole team at Dementia Australia and to everyone who shared their stories on this podcast.